If you're ever feeling down, just like look down in the text chat and look at that picture of David Draymond I sent you. And that should cheer you right up.
I just watched that video where that photo is from the Loudwire, like Wikipedia fact or fiction, and that guy is kind of freaky.
Yeah, I believe it.
He was like telling the story about his old man going to prison, and he's just like, I pushed a kid out of a window, and I was like,
okay, Jamie Lannister.
Let's fucking chill, man. Anyway, this is a Console Crusade podcast. We haven't fucking officially talked since what, November, before Thanksgiving.
Is that what we call this podcast? Is us officially talking?
The most interaction we fucking had since that podcast, I think, has been in the group chat.
Well, I mean, yeah, the most, but I mean, you came over to my house. We saw a movie together. I mean, shit, it's not like I haven't seen you. We got Thai food. We hung out. You enjoyed my Christmas decoration at least one day.
After Christmas.
Well, it counts. It's my festive holiday decor.
My holiday break did not go as planned by any stretch of the imagination. My little brother, his appendix exploded, so he was in the hospital for a couple nights. I was in and out of the hospital, you know. Someone was always chilling with him, so he wasn't just stuck by himself. And he had surgery, and he came home, and he was recuperating at my parents' house in the guest room where I would normally stay, right?
Mm.
So I ended up coming up later than anticipated, and then I was sort of displaced. I didn't really have anywhere to live. I was just like, Merry Christmas. And then he went back to the hospital for a couple nights and then back home. It was just like, so it was a weird break. I was off for like 12 days, but it didn't feel like I really had much of a vacation, you know?
Right.
Not that I'm not complaining. I could have been in the hospital with like, you know,
burst appendix.
yeah. So it could have been a lot
appendix
worse.
is still functional for whatever function it is.
You know what I learned about appendixes, Nick? What did you grow up thinking a goddamn appendix was? What did they tell you about appendixes as a child?
It's like a weird, no longer useful balloon that sits in your like tummy. Harry Houdini died because his burst, and he was too much of a Chad to like go to the hospital about it. He's like, oh, whatever, I'll fucking live with it. And then he like died like a week later.
Right. Didn't Houdini didn't it rupture because someone punched him during like a bet or something?
Nah, that's not like really what happened, but like it was close enough to around when it happened to sort of propagate and become like
an urban legend.
The general idea, the urban legend, you know?
Yeah. Apparently the appendix is imperative. Sorry, the appendix's function is imperative to basically having an immune system. However, if you remove your appendix, your other organs begin to do what your appendix does. So it's, in a sense, worthless. It's actually very crucial, but our other organs are like fucking ballers. So when something happens, they just pick up the fucking slack.
It's a huge liability because not many people have like their livers burst.
Right.
But the appendix is like, one more step and I'm going to fucking jump off this edge. I always get the appendix and the glossary mixed up, so that's another unhelpful thing.
Oh! There's a little pun humor from your boy.
Bit of a bibliography joke for you.
There you go. Well, like we said, this is a Console Crusade podcast. If you're listening to this podcast, you know that. There you go. What are you drinking?
Well, I moved on from the coconut LaCroix to the apple bubbly.
There you go. I noted earlier I'm drinking the blackberry bubbly. It's pretty good. Sarah bought it, hated it. And I said, oh, I'll drink that. I drank that at Nick's one night. It's fucking tasty.
It's really tasty.
Yeah, so pretty good. I don't even know where to begin catching up, dude. I first got to get out of the way. Over the holiday break, we spent a lot of time talking shit in the group chat. We saw Star Wars together, and then I got into it with Chris about how this was the best movie of the sequels, which isn't saying a lot. And he is a staunch Last Jedi defender, and so I told him we would have him on sometime in the new year to talk about Star Wars and like bitch about it, and he would try to come at me and tell me why Last Jedi isn't a fucking horrible, absolute disservice to all things Star Wars.
Well, maybe we'll do that next week, because I don't really want to get into that whole well-trodden territory, as I've described many of the topics that you mentioned that we could talk about.
Yeah, well, I would like to give my thoughts on Rise of Skywalker, but we'll do that with Chris if that ever actually happens. But yeah, I don't know. We missed a lot. We missed the Game Awards. We didn't do a prediction pod or a reflection pod. I guess the Game Awards kind of sucked this year, to be honest.
Yeah, it wasn't nearly as much like heavy hitting like trailers and stuff. And even then, like in years past, it's never been like super huge. It's been like, kind of our own niche with like cool Nintendo reveals. Nintendo really wasn't there this year. They showed DLC for that Marvel fucking beat 'em up game.
It's the end of a console generation. They're not going to be announcing games. We're going to start getting the game announcements probably by 2021 is when the big announcements start coming. They'll release PS5, they'll release Xbox Series X, whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I mean for Sony and Xbox, yeah, sure, but Nintendo's like mid-cycle right now. They just put out their console 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now.
Rumor on the street is that there are patents for a upgraded Switch that is potentially the much anticipated Switch Pro, said to drop later this year.
That was the same rumor last year, so like keep saying it and it'll come true, right?
Well, it would make a lot of sense if Nintendo wants to like remain relevant. Like if you can definitely make a more powerful Switch at this point without sacrificing battery life or thermals.
They could have done that the first time too, but they just wanted to make something cheaper. I don't think it times out right because I don't think they want to have direct comparison between the next gen PS5 and Xbox Series X. I think they'll wait till like summer next year and be like, please give us more ports. And it won't be like a direct consumer comparison. I think it worked out really well for them to launch their the Switch in between PS4 Pro and Xbox One X, doing it 6 months in between either of them.
That's also different because it wasn't a new console generation. It was an iterative thing that like not a lot of people were going to buy those items anyway. But the Switch was a whole new Nintendo console, and for a lot of people, it was the first new Nintendo console in 10 years.
Yeah, fair.
So I think it's apples to oranges in that sense.
I just think from like a pure like product and consumer spend ask, I think they don't really have a necessity for a more powerful Switch yet.
Well, they're already struggling to port. I don't want to say struggling to port. They just got the fucking Witcher. But like a lot of these newer games are a struggle to get onto to not just the cartridge, but like to actually compress everything and run properly and still look good and deliver an adequate experience. Like you don't think when the PS4 or PS5 and the X1X, when those come out, like they're going to be so far behind the curve. And if they wait a year, 2 years, like they need to get in before the PS5 and say, hey, look, developers, we can do this. You can port your games to us. Hey, Nintendo fans, don't worry. You're not going to be left behind several generations in the past. You're getting 360 games on the Switch in 2020. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's just sort of where we're at right now, where it's easier to upgrade a port from 360 and PS3 than to make a new game since the new consoles are on their way. And I guess the dev kits haven't been super widely available. So we're getting a lot of the runoff from that as like Switch fans, but PS4 and Xbox One are getting a lot of just remasters from last generation too, which I don't think is a bad thing, especially for me who was not super invested in that generation anyway. So for me, it's like the first chance to play a lot of these older games. And it's like, cool, I can play Ni no Kuni on the Switch. And that's an experience I never got to have because I didn't have $600 in 2006 and I didn't really want a PS3 anytime after that either. So
Right.
It's beneficial for me. But then like for like newer games, I don't know. I'm still kind of torn to see it's just so weird that games just keep getting bigger and bigger and more fidelity pour into them. And that means that these games have to be worked on for longer and with bigger teams. And ostensibly, you're going to be getting the same amount of money back. There's a ceiling to how many copies of a game gets sold. Like, it's amazing if a AAA game sells more than 5 million copies, right? So there has to be a point of, like, diminishing returns where AAA... I mean, we already see that with, like, a bunch of AAA companies putting out smaller titles just to be like, we want to have something small and, like, artistically interesting. And, like, I could see that side getting bigger. And I could see getting more games of like 360 and PS3 caliber, obviously like looking better, but not like crazy. Not every game's going to look like Uncharted or like Assassin's Creed because those are the biggest of the big. And we could still see more like the anime games are a good example of that, right? Because they sell really well for what they are. They're really cheap to make for what they are. Like Dragon Ball Z Kakarot comes out at the end of this week. It's going to be a bad game, but it's going to sell a ton of copies. I was thinking about sending you a picture of like the collector's edition that comes with this like a little diorama statue of Goku and Gohan riding on the Nimbus with like a dinosaur running beside them. It's just cute. It's just a really cheap shovel out CyberConnect ass video game, but that's gonna make money.
The last time we said that about a Dragon Ball game, we got Xenoverse, which was a really fucking good game. Total return to form for the franchise, and they kind of milked it with Xenoverse 2, and that's what it was, whatever. But like, hey, this might be a good game.
It's just a different measure of what good is. Like if Dragon Ball wasn't attached to it, you wouldn't play it.
Well, sure, but that's like a lot of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that doesn't make it a good thing. That makes it like okay for what it is. Like you've talked about this in relation to a lot of things, like Pokemon games, Star Wars movies. Like if it just isn't that thing, then it's like, then what's the point?
Oh no, I mean it could be a good game. Like Dynasty Warriors games, by all accounts, are good games. But I'm not gonna fucking play Dynasty Warriors until they put Zelda on it. And I really enjoyed that game.
Exactly. So it becomes more like marketing deals and like cooperation between different companies to get these games made. And I don't know, like I'm kind of surprised that Dragon Ball Z Kakarot isn't coming to Switch. Like that's a weird thing to me.
Yeah. It probably will in 6 months.
There's nothing about that game that says this needs to be on a PS4 or Xbox One.
It doesn't look particularly like it, It
doesn't even look as good as Fighters, and Fighters was on Switch.
It doesn't look as good as Xenoverse games to me. We talked about this though.
I think it looks pretty much the same as Xenoverse. Like I feel like the areas are maybe a little bit more open, so they had to cut down on some of the aspects of it. It seems a little more empty than Xenoverse, but I think Xenoverse is more like bespoke fighting arenas that you sort of teleported between, and then less about flying around an actual area, fishing with your tail or whatever.
Dude, Xenoverse was such a great experience. I played the shit out of that game. And it was like an MMO, so I'd hop on with other people and like you'd just be in the hub world, bopping around, and then go on these missions. And it was just so cool how they made Dragon Ball Z fresh. Dragon Ball Z has been the same show I've been watching for 25 years. So it was really cool to be like, I know these characters, I know these stories, but this is totally new and refreshing for me.
You didn't spend as much time in the sequel, but I know that was like a time and place kind of thing.
Yeah. I tried to play a sequel. I have it on both PS4 and Switch. And I tried to, it's a commitment, man. Games are commitment, and time is something I don't have a lot of, which, hey, we're just going to fucking use that as a segue, right? I played a lot of fucking games in the last, 2 months.
That's cool. I haven't heard you haven't even talked about it really, so I would be completely surprised to know what you've been playing.
I've been trying to save it for the fucking podcast for 2 months.
Just edging yourself for 3 weeks. Well, actually, no, it's like 6 weeks at this point, if not more. Fuck. Who's keeping track?
No, it's been just shy of 2 months. Yeah, I feel like I need a goddamn list of the things I've played, because oh boy, do I have thoughts. Oh boy, I started playing Pokemon, Nick.
Yeah, you talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, I have quite the list of my thoughts on that game, and I haven't even gotten to the first gym yet. Probably put like 5 or 6 hours.
That seems like a very common thing from the people I've talked to who have played it, is that they got sucked into just like wandering around the wild area, and it's like there's a cool loop there, but then they gate you from catching the higher level Pokemon because of you need badges to catch the stronger stuff.
Ugh, that's extremely frustrating. I don't know where to begin. Do you have anything? I'm trying to quickly make a list here because I'm prepared. You been playing anything new since last time we talked?
I don't know if we talked about Bloodstained at all last time we talked.
No, we did not.
So I got that on a killer sale, and I know they had just patched it on Switch, so I was like, I think it's time. I got it. I have not gotten very far. I beat maybe like 2 bosses, but it's pretty cool. I mean, especially considering it's an homage to a series that I have very little experience with. Like Castlevania games are always cool from the outside looking in, but I had never had the opportunity to play one before. So like I've dabbled with Symphony of the Night. I played it like 5 minutes of it on an emulator, but like I can't play it on my Switch. I can't play it on my PC. So like, what can I play it on? Nothing. Okay, cool. But yeah, great, right? But like I played a little bit of Circle of the Moon on the Game Boy Advance, and I've been trying to find Aria of Sorrow on the Game Boy Advance, but that's like a $50 game, and that's like I can't justify spending $50 on a Game Boy Advance game. So Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, which came out last year, is that more of like a throwback to like Castlevania 3, like the NES games. And that was a lot of fun. That was really cool. That was like a fun sort of jump into that style of game written new. And I was worried that the actual Bloodstained, the one that was kickstarted, and that Curse of the Moon was just a stretch goal. I was worried that Curse of the Moon was going to be just the better game, and that we're going to have like a Mighty Number 9 situation, because
Right.
this game looked like ass for so long. And it doesn't look super great. It's not like a beautiful game, but it's like, it's kind of quirky. It's kind of got that cheap but charming vibe, and I really like that. Like you get these big character portraits talking to each other on each side. It's voice acted, but like kind of poorly, not super great. But like, I don't know. I don't need voice acting to be great. I just need it to be interesting. And I think this game is more interesting than it is great, but I'm having a good time with it, and I want to keep playing some more, but I just haven't had the opportunity. Been sucked into other games that are more like long time, play forever kind of games.
Right.
It's kind of a bummer, but like I'm fine with that too. As long as I'm having a good time, I don't really care what I'm playing, right?
I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck about a shit bitch.
I've got quite the list, but I know I'm forgetting at least one thing because I feel like I really played a lot and have kind of been playing consistently since we last talked. So just to blow through it, I started Pokemon, didn't go very far. I put a couple hours into Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I played a fuck ton of Witcher 3 in the last couple weeks.
Dude, have you remembered to toss a coin to your Witcher?
Instant classic. That fucking song is one of the catchiest tunes in television history. Right off the fucking bat. When they were playing that song, I got goosebumps. And by the end of the episode,
simple. I love it.
It's so good.
It's really cool. The show, I'm only 3 episodes in. I've been watching it with Lindsay. It gives me such a strong, like, the like Hercules and Xena shows. It gives me such a strong vibe of that, where it's like they don't have the budget to be like super dramatic, and they don't have like the writers to make it really interesting. So it's entertaining and like schlocky, and I think it's a pretty fair translation of what the books are, because the books aren't like high fantasy, like beautiful. They're not like wonderful books. Like they're just okay. They're good books that the game's made better. And the show is just like a good representation of like, this is just a cool fantasy show. Like, fuck it. Here's Henry Cavill. They got some cool eye effects that sometimes look good and sometimes look wretched. Like, whatever. I'm not here for like the wonderful CG. I'm here to like watch him bang a witch or whatever.
Here's the thing about that show. And the show is why I picked up the game again. And by all accounts, the people who I know have read the books said that the show is more like the books. But I think they've done a really cool job of also being faithful to the Geralt we got in the video games. And Henry Cavill, wow, I was really anticipating a shitty performance. It's such a different take, but also like so accurate at the same time to the video game Geralt. And I spent a lot of time with video game Geralt, all right? I feel like I know that guy really well. And yeah, I'm like, kudos Henry Cavill, because the trailers looked awful. I thought the show was going to be bad.
Whoever at CD Projekt read those books and was like, you know what? Geralt is like the perfect video game character because he's not super invested in anything. He can sort of be like, he can do whatever and it would make sense for him. He's just a smarmy like asshole. And that's his character. Like he's just like the unwilling hero who's the smarmy asshole. Like that's just video game characters 101, right? So I think Henry Cavill's really translated that well onto the Netflix TV screen.
And I think we talk about low budget. I think everything about the show has been gorgeous. I think it's a beautiful show. The locations that they have filmed at and just what they've done with how little they did have. Well, how little, they probably had a massive budget considering, but
I was just more saying like the like cheapness as far as the quality of the actors. I don't know. It's just sort of like a bunch of dudes and women in some period piece clothing. Like, I thought Calanthe was not very, like, a super interesting character portrayal.
She was a little over the top.
Series cool. I like her so far. I mean, 3 episodes in, it's just her, like, looking over her shoulder and looking scared and screaming at some dude. But, like, you know, beyond that, it's just Henry Cavill. And then, like...
My beef with it so far is that they decided to tell this non-linear story, which is, like, fine, right? I understand it from a narrative perspective, you know, especially because these characters are on very, very different timelines before they presumably will converge as they do in the game and in the books.
Yeah, it was an interesting choice. I've obviously I've only watched 3 episodes, so I haven't had like the payoff for it yet, but I don't know why necessarily they started with like the Yennefer backstory. I thought they would have like introduced her as a character and then like sprinkled that in later, but like that's fine too.
That may have made more sense. Or at least telling the audience, because...
But like I said, I've only watched 3 episodes, so I don't know like the pacing of like the whole picture.
I'm 5 episodes in, and after the 5th episode, I was like, what the fuck is happening? Because in episode 5, either 4 or 5, you go back in time and you see some characters that aren't around anymore, and you're like, what the fuck is happening? And then you realize, oh, this is obviously a flashback, but like, they don't color grade
yeah, you want to have like a visual difference to be able to be like, if I'm cutting between scenes, I know that this is a different place or a different time period or whatever.
Like a bleach bypass filter, and you're like, oh,
imagine a yellow picture in Breaking Bad. You know you're in Mexico.
Well, even like I said, they do the bleach bypass sort of like stark, you know, sort of HDR, but like a lot of the yellows, and you're like, oh, this is a flashback. This is what they do when we're in a flashback, and I know that as a viewer instantly. The Witcher, I had to look it up after episode 5. I said, what the fuck is happening? And then they basically broke it down as, you have 3 timelines, the entire show. If you see Ciri, you're in the present day. If you see Geralt, you're 70 years ago. If you see Yennefer, you're like 100 and some years ago, right? I'm like, oh, okay. So I just think about it as like a 3-headed beast here. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I think that is a huge turnoff for people who don't know the characters and who don't have that as like an in. Because I kept watching it, and I think I tweeted this where I was like, the show is really good, but like I have to watch with closed captioning on because you can't understand a goddamn fucking thing they say. All the gobbledygook names and places and the shitty accents and everybody fucking mumbling. I hate watching shows with closed captioning on, but I had to do it because I'm like, I don't know what is going on. It's just mumbo jumbo. I'm like, Game of Thrones didn't have that
it's a
problem.
bad mix too, because like once they have like a fight scene, then it's like 100 times louder. So like I've got surround sound, so I like to bump it, you know.
Yeah.
But there's a point where it's like, okay, this is like ear shattering when it transitions from them whispering to each other to like a battle out of nowhere.
Right. So overall, I'm pleased with the show. I love like the monster fights so far have been really cool. I'm like, that is
Striga.
Yeah, it's totally faithful to what to the aesthetic that the game brought, which in the game completely brought the books to life.
Yeah, and it's cool for me who like I've read, I don't remember. Well, I haven't read. I listened to the audiobooks, but like I've read I think all the books. I don't know if I'm missing any, but it's interesting to see like I don't really catch it while I'm watching it, but like after I see it, I'm like, oh, I remember reading about the Striga. I remember this plot line. I just don't remember like the details about it because it's been a couple of years. So it's kind of cool seeing that stuff. And like the whole like timeline thing is that, yeah, you're right. That is super confusing, especially since the books it's not like interwoven throughout the books. It's like this book is happening here. And then it's just this story. Like there's a short story about Geralt and his fucking around with the bard guy.
Right.
Or like here's a story of him looking for an ashen-haired maiden or whatever. He's looking for Triss.
Right.
Now he's looking for Yennefer, but she's got, wizard politics happening.
Honestly, I've liked seeing, how we saw her backstory, and I guess I don't want to spoil anything because you haven't gotten.
Yeah, no, it was cool, but like it was just weird being introduced to that character that way when that's not the way you're introduced to the character in any other medium.
Right.
Like you see her from Geralt's perspective because he's the main character, but in this show you have 3 main characters and 3 different like timelines, so it's like weird that you're viewing it that way.
I think it was a mistake for them to do it that way because it's turned a lot of people off. A couple of my coworkers turned it off after episode 2, and they're like, it's confusing and dumb, and I don't like it. And I'm like, no, it's really a cool show. The action is really good, and Geralt is fucking cool, and there's some interesting political stuff happening, and just with the mages, and then I can't talk anymore about it. You haven't gotten there yet, but
it's fair because they have to. It's a lot of work to get you invested in a character, and you really have to do that before you try to introduce politics and like plot elements into that sort of mix.
Yeah, no, it's cool, and it inspired me to play the game again. Which I said to myself, I'm gonna beat this game finally. It's been
playing
years.
on PC or on Switch.
PC, thankfully. I was gonna buy it on Switch, but then I got Assassin's Creed 4 on Switch for Christmas. And it was a pretty awful experience. I understand if you were playing it for the first time with no context for it, like, hey, this is a pretty cool thing to have on the Switch. But I'm like, dude, I just got to get my PC buttoned up and play it back on there if I'm going to play it again, because this is...
Sick of all these Wii U ports, man.
Hey, that version was better than the Wii U version. The Wii U version was, like, pretty abysmal.
The Wii U version was better than the 360 and PS3 version.
That is not true.
Oh, yeah, it's got better load times and the texture quality is better.
It's just a glitchy
I watched
mess.
the Digital Foundry on it. Okay, I remember. It's just that the PS4 and Xbox One version came out at the same time. So, like, who's comparing it to the 360 and PS3?
That's true. Every year, my girlfriend's family are adamant, like, what's on your Christmas list? And I'm like, I'm almost a 30-year-old man. I don't have like, can you give me the will to live? Can you clear my debt? Like, no, then I don't know. Buy me a fucking Lego. Buy me a bottle of whiskey.
Wait, what's that? Have you played any of that game that Sarah's aunt got you?
No, so here's the thing. She kept bugging me what I wanted, and I'm like, I don't know. I buy the few things that I want that I can afford, So I'm like, well, so I put some camera gear, and I knew she wasn't going to get that, so I put The Witcher and Assassin's Creed 4. So she got me Assassin's Creed 4. But then when I went to go open the other Switch game that I was like, oh, that's a Switch game. It's probably The Witcher, yada, yada. I open it up, and it's Zombieland 2 Double Tap for the Nintendo Switch. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And listen,
Nigh indistinguishable from The Witcher in all aspects.
I know I gotta appreciate, like, hey, you're trying to buy us things and be sweet, and like, I get it, but like, don't waste your fucking money buying something that I didn't like ask for. Like, and here's the thing, I ignored her for the longest time. I'm like, I'm not giving you a Christmas list because A, I know that you're gonna get like one thing from it and then buy a bunch of random shit that was like gonna probably go home with somebody else. Like, Nick, we all got plungers. You know, I'm 27 years old. I have a plunger. I don't need a plunger. And she got the same plunger for everybody. So I don't want to be a dick. I appreciate that she tries to do something, but I'm like, I'm not going to play this game. And I don't want to be a jerk and be like, hey, can I return this game to buy the game that I wanted? You know, it's like an awkward thing for everybody. Like, why? She called me, she texted me, she emailed me like a fucking old person, was so up my ass about getting our Christmas list, and I finally did. And then, like, I put a pair of pants on the list, right, Nick? She, like, bought me instead, like, Fred Meyer branded, like, cargo pants. Why would you be literally up my ass for weeks about a list and then just buy, like, the knockoff version of it?
Merry Christmas. Here's exactly what you didn't ask for. But I asked you so many times for what you exactly wanted, and then I just decided to completely disregard that.
Right. I mean, you could have saved hundreds and hundreds
Here's
of dollars and just bought some whiskey and, like, fed us dinner, and we all hung out, and it would have been a great night. But instead, we have this awkward gift exchange where everyone's going in order opening, like,
yay, I love it.
Oh, you got me a charger for my phone. Oh, everyone else got the same charger. Like,
yay.
It's just like, it's a weird, anyway, I sound really ungrateful, but that's context for it, right? So I opened Zombieland. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'll check that out. I'm like, I don't have time for the things I like. I'm not going to play Zombieland 2. This is just an awkward thing. So it's just sitting at my house now. I'm like, well, maybe it'd be a funny bit. We'd play it together and then we talk about it on the podcast, but that didn't happen.
Hey man, never say never. That's what we call back burner topic.
Listen, motherfucker.
/ content.
I haven't gotten you to play Overcooked 1 or 2 yet, despite it being a phenomenal game and a great multiplayer experience that I even got my brother to play. Andrew doesn't play anything, Nick. He hates doing things with people. I can't get him to hang out in the house when I'm home. I can't get him to play anything with me. But that game, we sat there. I'm 1 trophy away from a platinum. That's how much we played Overcooked together.
You know, the longer you hold on to this, the more viable this bit becomes of me not playing it with you.
It's just a bummer,
you
man.
have no one to blame but yourself.
I like want to just do fun things with my friends, but I think last time I came over, I just played Switch while you streamed with Mac or something. I just try to have playing a game with a bud. That's all I'm trying to do. This is 4 years later now. It's 4 years later. Get over this bit. Play Overcooked with me.
Nothing wrong with playing a game with your bud while they're playing a different game. Like, that's just camaraderie.
Sometimes it's cool. But I'm just trying to play Overcooked. And now I'm mad about it.
The more mad you get, the funnier it becomes.
Anyway. We totally got derailed. We were talking about The Witcher.
You been playing with a bunch of mods, or?
Oh, I modded it out. I want minimalist HUD, but I need quest markers. Like, I don't want to fuck with.
Did you find a mod that gives you a compass?
Not a compass, but when I hit my left trigger and turn my Witcher senses on, I can choose what markers I want to pop up as a waypoint. So instead of like Skyrim, where it's a constant compass, or like something like Assassin's Creed, where I mark it on my map and the little icon always shows on my screen, you know, like a dynamic marker in the world. I just tap my Witcher senses, my video game senses, and so I can just kind of check up on when I need, you know, am I in the right direction, etc. So it's nice because the first time I played the game, I literally spent every moment in that game that I wasn't fighting, I was looking at the minimap. So I'm exploring this gorgeous world, and I'm just constantly looking at the map, trying to see the trail that it wants me to be on to get where I'm going. And that really took away from the experience. So I got that mod. I got a fast travel mod, which has made my life so much easier. I can't believe that game didn't have a proper fast travel system.
Yeah, especially with how like hand-holdy it is in every other aspect. Like, they could at least save you some time, as opposed to just making you look in the corner of your screen 90% of the time.
Well, what's frustrating is, like, even with the fast travel mod, I feel like 90% of the game has just been me running from point A to point B and not a lot happening. I was like, if I didn't have the fast travel mod, imagine how much worse that would be, you know? just holding
Right.
A and running across this gigantic map. But that being said, the game is cool. The characters are great. It's interesting how much I can enjoy a story when I don't have any context for who the characters are or what happened with them for 2 different games. And they kind of catch you up on some stuff, but like it still just works.
Yeah, it's amazing how well a well-written game with strong source material can translate to be the 3rd installment of a series, and it still be interesting for new players.
Right. Yeah, so that's been fun. I played the most of that. I started Outer Worlds, which I determined that it is not a game for me. It felt really not very good. And I guess if I had like experience with something like an older Fallout game, or I don't know, what's another like shooter? I don't know. I feel like maybe I could get behind it. I could see where people like it, but the menus are really difficult to navigate. The systems are super obtuse. The graphics aren't very good. The gunplay is like really mediocre. And I don't play a lot of shooters, but the ones I've played are like really, like Destiny has got like the best gunplay in a fucking, you know,
Because Destiny is a shooter, and Outer Worlds is a RPG.
Yeah, but
that has a gun in it.
but the shooting is it's like that's kind of the main mechanic of the game.
Yeah, but like the shooting isn't for shooting; it's for like rolling a dice to see if you hit them and like all that kind of stuff. That's why they got the same sort of slowdown mechanic that Fallout had, just because it's not for shooting; it's for combat. That's like an RPG. It's like saying that Skyrim is an action game because you press a button and you swing a sword. It's like it's not really an action game. It's an RPG that you sometimes will get hit by a giant and fly 300 yards into the sky, but like beyond that,
yeah,
you're not really doing like Devil May Cry stuff. So it's just kind of a weird thing.
Fair enough. It wasn't for me. It wasn't very fun. It was slow.
Yeah, I was wondering if you would vibe with it because it is so like Obsidian. They basically copied new Fallout and then gave you better dialogue. So I thought that maybe you might like that just because it's like, oh, it's like Skyrim with guns, but in space this time.
Definitely not. It definitely didn't click with me. I played it for a couple hours and had just a really hard time getting into it. And that's when I flipped over to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which I liked. I liked for a minute there. And I was looking for like the next thing, right? Because I'm a fan, kind of my genre, I feel like, is the action, third-person action adventure with RPG elements, right? I really like Spider-Man. I really liked Horizon.
The every game as it's known.
Well, yeah. And there's again, we've talked about it. There's a reason those games are so popular and they always do so well. Because
they've been honed to a fine edge.
They bring so many elements to the table and do so much right. So I was kind of looking for like, what's that next game? Because after Star Wars, I beat Star Wars. I was just kind of had the itch to find the next game. And Assassin's Creed was cool. And if I hadn't left for my holiday break, I probably would have kept playing it. Overall, I'm like, this is not an Assassin's Creed game.
It's The Witcher, but with better traversal.
Well, the traversal was pretty
story.
good. The traversal was pretty good. The story was a lot worse. And the combat, some people think it's like amazing combat, and
I thought it was really loose. It felt like all my attacks were being done by a pool noodle. Witcher had that sort of similar thing where my attacks they just like the sword goes through the enemy and it doesn't affect their animation at all. So it's like I'm just swinging at a number that gets smaller. I'm not really attacking a being,
Oh man, we played different Witchers, bro. Oh man, yeah. I don't know those.
And just the way he's like twirling around and flipping around. Like I don't know where I'm gonna move when I'm attacking. Like the lock-on system wasn't great either.
Fair. Yeah, no, Assassin's Creed, and there's like a lot. There's a lot happening. You've got like 2 hotkeys that open like an MMO opens a fucking like a weapon wheel, or not a weapon wheel, but like an attack wheel. It's the L2 plus square
skills.
Yeah, exactly. A little skill wheel.
Yeah, you can assign those to different skills as you unlock them.
Right. But I'm like, this is too much. Like, dude, just give me. Listen, I've said it before. I really like the sort of the Arkham Assassin's Creed formula, where it's like I have an attack button, I have a parry button, and I have to get my timing right, and I have a gadget I can use, or some other skill. I like that.
Yeah, but they have to have a way to shoehorn a progression system and a skill tree and a loot system and like just bog it down with all this crap and then make the game 100 hours long with a giant fucking map that no sane person who wants to play more than one game for a year has like the time to do.
Well, what I liked about something like The Witcher is I see your complaints to a degree, but it's really concise in the sense that, dude, you've got a heavy attack, you've got a light attack, you've got a dodge, you've got a roll. You have 4 buttons that you need to worry about.
And your magic wheel, don't forget about that, where you have to hold down a trigger and then use your right stick to select a art or whatever. Hated that system. That sucked.
I don't understand what your beef with the wheel is. I actually think The Witcher does the wheel better because you don't have to hold it.
I hate the wheel. I just hate wheels.
I
hate wheels.
You just tap it. You tap it, and it's the left trigger. So it's like it pauses your game essentially, and you can, you're not trying to like juggle fucking hand-eye coordination to be like, all right, now I gotta time this properly and flip to this thing and then untime it, or else I'm gonna lose my momentum. No, it's just
I would rather set the left trigger to just do one thing and then change that outside of battle than have to do it on the fly. Like, again, it stops it completely. I'm just saying that's like my beef with that. I'm not saying that it's a bad system. I'm just saying that I'm stubborn in my ways and I just didn't like it.
Yeah. I don't use it like my magic unless an environmental element dictates that I need to like knock a door down or burn a body. You know what I mean? So it's like it's kind of moot to me. I just hack and slash because I'm a fucking gunner, bro. Gunner
with a sword.
Assassin's Creed was just it was a lot. It's like you got all these you've got your face buttons, and then you've got your triggers, and then you've got the skill that you're trying to remember. Like, wait, was it L2 or R2, and is it square? It's like
there was definitely a learning curve to the inputs in general for that game.
Yeah. It was way too obtuse for like just something. It's Assassin's Creed. It's supposed to be fun. I want to romp around. I want to climb shit. There was nothing to fucking climb. I'm like in this flat place. Occasionally,
what
jump
off
a tree.
You can climb on that statue's dick in like 30 minutes or less, and that's a great time.
I didn't see no statue's dick. And I
you weren't looking, dude.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it could have been a fun experience, but it just The Witcher came along and I started playing that, and it's been a lot.
Yeah, The Witcher
better.
came along 4 years ago, 5 years ago,
and I've gotten so close to beating it twice, and then I just never did. And now it's like, well, I got to restart it and do all these quests again and catch up on everything. And on one hand, I'm glad I have. I'm playing my Geralt as one of the mods I got was like an infinite money mod. I'm not going to fucking go grind out just to buy. Like, I don't fucking care. I'm playing on an easy mode. I want to experience the story. I want to kill some shit. I want to be OP. I want to toss infinite coins to my Witcher. Okay?
9999999.
Exactly. That's what I did.
Repeating.
So I'm playing my Geralt as just a chill guy. Like, I don't need your money. I'm helping you out. I'm being a homie right now.
You don't need their money because you have all of the money.
I have all the money. A good guy Geralt. That's how I'm role playing this game, and I'm enjoying it. I'm not sleeping around anymore. Geralt, listen, you're not a hustler. You got one true love.
And her name?
I got one true love. I picked Yennefer.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, well, here's the thing.
You gotta pick Yen.
I spoiler alert for The Witcher. I found out that one of the endings in the DLC, literally just a cutscene at the end. If you picked Triss, Triss is there at the very end. If you picked Yen, Yen is at the very end. If you didn't pick either of them, or you got rejected by both of them, Ciri is there at the end. And I'm like, Ciri is kind of the whole point of this game. I would rather end up like saying fuck off Yennefer just so that I can get my cutscene at the end of the game with Ciri being like,
not canon though. Come on.
Whatever. Yeah. I'll probably end up picking Yennefer and whatever. But yeah, I'm trying to get to the game, and hopefully I don't lose my motivation this time before, and do this again in 2 years.
Maybe by the time The Witcher 4 comes out, you can finish The Witcher 3.
Right. That'll be like 6 years from now, 7 years from now.
Sounds like a pretty fair estimate, actually. I can see that coming out in 2026.
I'll be really interested in Cyberpunk, which is coming out very soon. For what, 3 months? It's April.
April, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I wonder if that'll pick you up. I feel like that's a little bit closer to a shooter, a little bit more like a Deus Ex version of the whole first-person RPG.
Yeah, I like sci-fi, and I like shooting things. So if it's, we'll see.
Got a good pedigree,
right?
What else have you been playing besides The Witcher and a few moments of several other games?
I want to talk about Pokemon real quick. I don't know if you've played Pokemon. I got to bring up my Pokemon notes.
I have not played Pokemon. I've watched Lindsay play a little bit and sort of absorbed the room's vibe, but I have not put hands on it myself.
I wrote a pros and cons list, and to be fair, I haven't gotten to the first gym yet, and that's due to 2 parts. One, the fucking tutorials are worse than Sun and Moon, if you remember those. The tutorials and the hand-holding and the cutscenes I can't get out of. There are so many moments where someone pops up in my game, says, hey, come with me, or hey, look at this, or hey, listen to me, and I can't do shit. And I feel like I played that game.
The story.
No. It's not like...
I know.
Yeah.
Dude,
Okay.
I know. I'm just yanking your chain.
Thank you, motherfucker. It's like,
Hi, I'm your rival. Hi, I'm the teacher person. Hi, I'm this person who's related to the teacher person, and maybe I'm a good guy, maybe I'm a bad guy, but I'm actually a good guy.
it's just like, shut the fuck up and let me play until you have something meaningful to say. You know, like I spent so many hours just listening to people talk and show me around and say, this is the this system and this is the that system. I'm like, great, I fucking get it. I've played Pokemon. You know, like this is nobody's first Pokemon game.
Aren't you excited about max raid battles though?
I did some of the PC generated, like, you know, CPU battles where because you can't find anybody in a fucking raid. Good fucking luck. You say search and you sit there and it boots you out. And so you just battle
CPU.
CPUs.
I was like, what the fuck is a CP raid? I don't want to know what you're talking about.
Open up. So pros and cons. My pros list is a Pokemon game technically. And if that's all you want out of Pokemon is I'm going to run around and catch some Pokemon, like, sure. And this is my problem with Star Wars. It's my problem with Pokemon. Yeah, this was just fine X amount of years ago. We should be holding these developers to higher standards. And as the people who buy these games and play these games and talk about these games, we deserve better, period. So fine or good enough is not actually good enough in this age. You know, this isn't an indie game, right?
Sounds like an entitled man-child to me. Actually, this game's for kids. Oh, I win.
Here's the thing: there are a lot of good things out there that are quote unquote made for children.
Ha, name one.
I've been watching Star Wars Rebels with Sarah. She's been all into Star Wars lately, so she's been watching Rebels. And every time I pop in and watch some with her, I'm like, dude, this show is so much better than Clone Wars, which is widely regarded as a great show. And I'm like, this is clearly a kid's show. But this is also Star Wars. This is also, like, the lore is good. The stories are good. The characters are good. The writing, especially for a kid's show, could almost fool me into thinking this was just, like, another Star Wars movie. I'm like, this is a good thing that's made for kids. We talked about this last time. We talked about Shrek. Shrek was made for kids. Shrek's a good-ass movie. Right?
That's why they made 4 of them.
Yeah, it's
They never stopped making them.
saying it's for kids is a shitty cop-out when, like, it's okay to like something. And listen, the group chat, they like Pokemon because they just want more Pokemon, I guess, and that's fine. But like, and here's the thing: I wasn't gonna buy it, and I didn't buy it. A buddy of mine gave it to me. Like, he bought the dual pack, and he fucking gave it to me. Maybe I mentioned that in the last pod. I don't know. So I'm kind of felt obligated to play it.
Yeah, because he's the sucker that bought the dual pack.
Right?
Hey, you can buy both of them for $120, saving you $0.
Yeah, you save like 2 cents or something. Listen, my cons list, and again, I've only played for a few hours. I spent most of my time in the wild area just catching Pokemon and romping around. But several of those hours were exploring where they wanted me to explore, talking to people they wanted me to talk to, going to several towns, but still not doing anything.
And this is coming from someone who loved Let's Go and didn't exactly love Sun or Moon.
I appreciated what Sun and Moon wanted to do. I beat those games. I had a good time playing what I played with you and Trevor. But those were the epitome of just like, it was Pokemon. They tried to do something different, but instead of listening to the people who play the games and giving us what we asked for, you try to do something different for difference's sake. And it didn't really work, and it was like, whatever. The cons of this game, I briefly touch on these. And if any of these stick out to you, holler at me. Hilarious translation. I wish I could think of an example right now, but there are so many moments where I was like, what the fuck are they saying? This is horrible. This is a horrible translation. Like, meme-worthy stuff. I'll have to take a picture next time I run into something. No touch controls. Why are developers still making games for the Nintendo Switch without touch controls? Why can't I hit my fucking attack when I'm playing handheld? Why do I have to fucking navigate with buttons and click A on a menu option? How hard is
they
it?
even had that in the DS games.
Like, what the fuck? This is not... Like, so that's a frustrating thing. Again, goes to show you, and we're going to talk about the DLC they just announced, because, oh boy, I'm riled up.
Before you move on, what's worse? Not having touch controls or having forced motion controls in Let's Go? Because that was annoying too.
Forced motion controls aren't great. However, if you're playing on the TV, like, you know, I don't know. I settled into it really nicely. And then if you're playing handheld, like, you don't have to use the motion controls. So it's like...
But you do, because you have to, like, aim the ball using the entire Switch. It was really bad. I hated playing that game handheld. I played that game almost entirely on TV because of that. Oh shit.
All right. Fucking Pokemon.
Itemized list.
My itemized list. Okay. So yeah, the touch controls, it's just one of those little things that, when we look at like the Pokemon they cut, and now who knows the reasons why they cut them now with the DLC being announced.
We'll talk about that after your cons list.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah. It's just frustrating that like, dude, come on. No touch controls. That's so silly. Again, the tutorial's ridiculous. It's like, just let me play the game. Please. Quit interrupting what I'm doing to drag me along on something I can't skip. Please. It's horrible. It's worse than Sun and Moon, and it was making me so frustrated that I just wanted to quit playing.
Something I did find interesting just from observing, like obviously I don't know what the pacing feels like playing, but I thought it was interesting and kind of cool that they were introducing gym leaders outside of their gyms, like they're actual people that were like involved in a story that they might be trying to tell.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know how that plays out, but like I like that idea. I wish they would do that more in other games. Like imagine if you were introduced to Misty and Brock before you actually had to fight them, like the show did, or if you're like, oh, I recognize Giovanni before we like. That's the cool thing about fighting Giovanni and then facing him as the 8th gym leader in Red and Blue. It's like, oh, I know this guy. I've fought him before.
Yeah, totally.
Like, that's
agree.
interesting, and they rarely ever do anything with that. And like, why not? These are the only characters that you have these sprites for back then. But like, I don't know if you're gonna actually name these characters, give them a fucking character.
No, I'm totally with you. I think that's really cool, and I'll see how that plays out because I'm not that far. Another little thing that frustrates me when we're talking about a 3D Pokemon game, and it's like we want to go in the Breath of the Wild direction, where it's like, and again, despite my feelings on that game or whatever, like it was closer to being a real game in the current year, right? And Pokemon it's basically just doing the top down, like no camera controls. In the wild area, you have camera controls, and it's like okay, I'm exploring and I can move around. Why is this so hard? Just give us a game where I can rotate my camera and explore this world how I want to. And I know it's a different design philosophy.
It's JRPGs. I mean, honestly, JRPGs only just started having camera controls in like the past 10 years, and they're still figuring out how to do it because, like, watching Lindsay play some Ni no Kuni, that camera moves so goddamn slow, and I doubt there's a setting to make it move faster, and I doubt there's a setting in Pokemon that allow you to control the camera faster. And I don't know, they really need to up their game on designing, because it seems like half the buildings in these towns aren't even buildings, they're just big rectangles that you walk past because you can't go inside of them. So if a building you can't go inside exists in a game, it's not a building, that's just geometry.
Right.
And there's like 3 characters in each of these towns, and like, what's the point of this town? Is it just so I have a place to buy a thing? Why do I even have to go into a town to buy a thing at this point?
Right.
Like, give me a kiosk. Imagine if there's a vendor walking through the wild area and you could like find him and buy something interesting for once. Like, why can't we have cool, interesting new mechanics in these games?
Well, again, we talked about it on the last episode. It's because you've got these fucking boomers trying to develop games, and they even came out and said as much. Like, they don't know what they're doing. That's really the root of it. And they need to fucking clean house and bring in some young bucks who can develop a real game in the current year. Pokemon designs are really dumb. This has been the case for years and years and years. Every once in a while, you get like 1 or 2 cool Pokemon designs. The starters are fucking horrible. And every time you run into a new one, you're like, what? What is fan-made Pokemon on Reddit are like more interesting, better designed, and more in line with, I think, like the first gen's design philosophy, despite some of Gen 1's stupid stuff. And Gen 2, I think the really top tier Pokemon in Gen 2 are like really good.
Yeah, but then you still get crap like Girafarig that looks like an abomination.
I mean, at least it's like its own thing. It doesn't look like a ripoff of something we've gotten 16 times.
Sure, that's fair.
And I don't know, not a fan of, but this has been a gripe I've had for
I don't
years
really,
and years.
I mean, I don't really dislike strongly any of the Pokemon designs that I've seen from the new set. I think the legendaries are kind of too samey.
Yeah.
Like, there's no real reason why they had to be 2 like wolves that are the exact same colors. Like, come on, just change it a little bit. Make one of them red, the other one blue, you know? Make one of them anything different than the other one, but they're just these really generic looking samey Pokemon. And then the new legendary they showed from the direct was like, I thought that truly looked awful. Just the quality of the drawing that they showed, like, this is the key art that you're showing. It looks like someone's son drew a Digimon, and they're like, okay, this is a Pokemon now.
Yeah, I mean, that's
it
what I'm
really
saying.
Bad.
It's just, again, they need some fresh
But I don't have
blood.
that problem with like the starters. I thought the starters were all like fine. I thought their evolutions, as per usual, is like fine. I don't know. I don't think any of the starters have been like truly interesting since like Gen 3.
Ooh.
Maybe Gen 4. What Gen had like
Infernape
Piplup and those ones? I love Piplup. Piplup's great.
Piplup's cool. And
Goddamn
Polion.
It's steel water. That's such a cool goddamn combination.
Yeah. I was saying Infernape begs to differ. Infernape's the fucking... He was the firefighting we deserved, not Blaziken. You know? Gen 3, like...
Yeah, I didn't like Blaziken. I didn't like Infernape.
Oh, I loved it.
I thought that Tepig and his evolution line was kind of cool, but I didn't play that game, so...
Grookey is awesome. It's like, oh, he's a little monkey who plays drums. He's adorable.
He's a monkey drummer. He's you.
Yeah, right? Well, his final evolution's horrible.
All he's missing is chocolate, and then he's like your username for like the first 15 years of your life.
Shout out to Choco Monkey 3. Love it.
The first 2 were taken.
I don't know where the 3 came from.
Your favorite number? I don't know.
I don't fucking know, man. But Choco Monkey 3, that's classic.
It happened.
So that's sort of just a general gripe. The Pokemon designs are consistently silly, and literally everything I see on Reddit is better.
Probably a confirmation bias thing. You only see the things that get upvoted, so
that's fair. But even then, I mean, can't you guys even do one thing that's as cool as the one thing that gets upvoted on Reddit? Like, it's just consistently like you roll your eyes at every new Pokemon.
I think some of the time, like their naming isn't very good. Like, I've noticed they've gone more towards like the fake, made up sounding language stuff, or like they just don't translate it from the Japanese. Like, how are you supposed to say Morpeko? Like, they don't say it in the game because they don't have voice acting. But like, how is that Pokemon pronounced? You don't know,
right? Yeah,
you can't pronounce it because it's not localized. You can't even come up with a full like a cool pun involving it being hangry. Like they chose hangry as its ability, which is like dumb and memey enough as it is. But you can't like name it something based on that either. I mean, come on.
It's lazy.
That's such a minor gripe that I'm complaining about, but I'm on a podcast. This is my platform, so fuck off.
Well, dude, it really is the principle of the matter. It speaks to a larger design philosophy that is deeply flawed and is giving us subpar products. And these things sold like gangbusters. So it's what's going to change? We're going to be getting the same Pokemon game 20 years from now. Like my kids are going to be bitching about their 6th Pokemon game, saying it's the same fucking game. I'm like, yeah. You little shit. I've been doing this since 1998. I don't want to hear about it.
I don't know. Kids are very easy to please.
I mean, young kids maybe.
Yeah.
But kids grow up and kids become older kids whose tastes were fine.
I don't know. I think back to like when we were growing up with Pokemon, it was never like Pokemon was cool when we were in elementary school. Pokemon wasn't cool when we were in middle school or in high school. Like we still got by being nerdy and like finding other nerdy people who would like be into that stuff too. But like I had a DS in high school and like it wasn't cool for me to bring my DS to high school. It was cool to bring my Game Boy to fucking elementary school. Like you weren't allowed to. It was so cool. Like they were afraid that kids were trading games and like being ripped off and shit. So like it was banned. But like nobody banned DSs from high school because it's like who gives a shit about your stupid DS, you goddamn nerd.
Well, that's less of a reflection on Pokemon and more just a product
kids
of being
are mean
older.
to each other and stop them from like liking kid things.
Yeah, but
so
like
it becomes like watered down.
Pokemon was still cool as fuck for people who were in 4th grade when we were in high school. Right?
Sure, but I wasn't a 4th grader when I was in high school.
Right, but I'm just saying like Pokemon's popularity has never really waned.
Exactly, because there's always going to be 4th graders.
Sure. Listen, I remember playing this in high school, my entire group of friends, and like a lot of my friends weren't what you would consider nerdy. A lot of people fucked with it, you know, and it wasn't something maybe you go to the cafeteria and everyone's playing a fucking Game Boy, but it's like never once did I feel like, oh, I'm playing like a kid's game. Like, no, like fuck off. I'm playing my fucking DS at lunch. Like I'm skipping class and getting high and fucking hanging out, smoking cigarettes, playing Pokemon. Like whatever, maybe, yeah. You know,
like a cool fellow.
I'm saying what I'm saying was cool. I'm just saying it wasn't nobody cared, like you said, but like the people, you know, we cared, and that's what matters. You know,
it was probably more aggressive in like middle school when like caring about what each other was doing was way bigger, and it started cooling down after you hit high school. But like there was still like that social kind of clickiness that schools sort of instill in children. And my main point is that I don't even know where we fucking got onto this tangent from, but like kids are always gonna like this because kids have bad taste. Like have you tried to go back and like watch like Power Rangers? Power Rangers was a bad show. You know, Ninja Turtles was a bad show. It's all just dumb shit for kids. And it gets shoveled out by adults who don't know what kids want. So they just make kids want the thing because they like, oh, bright colors and like swords and shit. You know?
Yeah.
And Pokemon's in that same category.
I'm trying to think of
you want a franchise to grow up with you, but like franchises rarely grow up with you, and when they do, it's like 1 in a million that actually works out. Like Harry Potter kind of worked in retrospect. It's like the first couple books were way too kiddie, and then it tried a little bit too hard to be adult without actually having any adult themes. It was like a kid's idea of what an adult like book would be like, or a mature book, I guess you could say.
Like, imagine if Zelda didn't grow up. Like, I don't mean grow up as in like, oh, it's made for adults now, but I just mean like Zelda is still a great game as almost 30-year-old dudes because like they evolved it enough with the times. They're not just making the game they made fucking 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah, but I think Zelda is sort of in the same category as like Lord of the Rings, where it's not really targeted for kids, but that kids find interest in it. Like Zelda's about a little fairy boy, yes, but it's also the first one didn't explain to you anything. You're just throwing bombs at random shit. And that works for kids because kids have infinite time, but like it wasn't handholdy in the way that a lot of kids' media is these days.
Sure.
And maybe that's just a sign of the times, or maybe that's a Japanese ideology that doesn't really like sing to what the American audience and the American like media creation sort of pipeline looks like, I guess. I don't know. I just don't see that as being like, I don't know what Zelda games made for kids, except maybe like the DS ones.
I mean, all of them really.
Touch controls.
I mean, they're all
but
made
like they're
for
not
kids.
they're not like kiddie games though. I don't think of Pokemon and Zelda in the same sort of lens.
Pokemon is not selling 15 million copies because 15 million fourth graders are playing it.
Right.
We are buying it. People older than us are buying
because
it.
We're idiots. You're buying it I mean, you didn't actually buy it, but like people like you are buying it despite the fact that it's not really doing the same thing for you as what it did when you were in 4th grade.
But again, it doesn't need to do the same thing.
Obviously, you don't want it to do the same thing. You want it to grow and evolve with you, but it's still doing the same thing. So it's a problem for you as the person because your lens has changed.
I mean, yeah, it has changed, but it's less about. It's so funny because like looking at something like music, and you know, I just want to basically listen to music that I liked in high school. I want to like more of that, but things have changed so much.
Yeah, I can't. I've probably seen a tweet about that before, where it's talking about how your music, like your music tastes, do not change after you hit like 25, or like earlier, like 22. You're right. Like, I just want to listen to music from when I was 16 to 22.
And part of it is just like accessibility. I have a lot less time to just, you know, in high school I listened to music 8, 10, 12 hours a day. I was always looking for something new. I was talking about music with my friends. I work 10 hours a day now. And you know, I don't get to listen to music the way I did, so that's part of it. But like, I don't want it. I'm like these guys. Like, I don't want you to change. I want you to like keep making cool stuff, but stay in your niche, stay in your zone. And I want to listen to that. I don't want you to fucking change and go out and do these other things. Video games, it's like the opposite. I'm like, no, I want you, like Pokemon. You need to like elevate your shit to where the rest of the world is right now. The rest of these developers making quality experiences. Like, again, good enough is not good enough. So I get what you're saying. I don't mean to like discredit, like I know exactly what you're saying, and it's valid. Like a lot of things, you know, but again, we talk about Star Wars and well, it's just not for you. Well, it should be. And that's not an entitled thing. Like Star Wars is for everybody. And it always has been. So if you're making something that is so divisive, something is clearly wrong. Right? It's not a vocal minority that's upset. Like in like the group chat, like Pokemon's fine. I don't want fine. And I'm playing it, and yeah, it's fine. And I'm like, I'll probably end up beating it in the next month. But that's not going to change the things that are wrong about it and the things that should be better and the things that I want out of the next one.
Right. It's just tough, especially when you dislike something that is disliked so vehemently by like this weird, toxic minority that is the only thing that the people who are for it focus on because it makes their point look better because it's like a built-in straw man.
Yeah.
So it makes it really hard for there to be any sort of discussion from people with opposing viewpoints on anything now because the internet is everybody. But I think for things like Star Wars and Pokemon specifically, because they are so well liked by such a large amount of people, that once you start making something for everybody, I mean, there's the old saying, because it's true, you can't please everybody. So if your audience is everybody, you can't please all of them. So you got to sort of like, it makes sense that they keep making the same game, because how do you grow and evolve a game and not lose your audience?
Well, I always point to, I look at something like Avengers Endgame. That's how you please everybody. you're not literally pleasing everybody. Someone's always gonna have a complaint about this or about that, or this could have been like this, or but like the majority you have done a service to by creating what you created. I think that is like the pinnacle of how you please an audience while like not sacrificing like the artistic integrity of what you're making. Like you made something beautiful with a lot of character and a lot of heart, and these characters were well written and true to themselves, and they were developed. And like, yeah, there's always, it's like, okay, it's a popcorn flick and they could have done this and they could have explored this, but overall the whole package, like, damn, y'all nailed it.
Yeah, and I guess the difference there is that they've been making that same movie since Iron Man 1 came out, you know?
That's also something I disagree with, that they're all the same movie.
I mean, it's the same pacing. It's the same sort of like quippiness. It's the same joke per minute, like ratio. Like it's hard to like dissemble them and be like, I mean, obviously I'm not like a goddamn film major, so I can't say beyond like, they all just feel the same, you know? With like very rare exception. And the ones that do stick out, I end up not liking as much. Like I didn't like Thor Ragnarok very much. I thought it was too jokey. And Thor 2 was just bad, but like it was the same movie as Thor 1, which was also pretty bad.
Well, people say Marvel movies are all the same, and I'm like, I mean, they're an action movie with sometimes funny bits that are like really well made. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a good action movie. You know, like if you've watched other action movies, like that's what Fast and the Furious is.
Yeah. What more do you want from it? Like, hey, you have great characters, you have great action. This is well made. Cool. Yeah. I want Fast and Furious should make a fucking horror movie. Why is it just a fun action movie? But it's because that's what they fucking are. You know what I mean? Like it's not whatever. So I get what you're saying, but yeah, when Pokemon, I'm never gonna be satisfied with the Pokemon game unless it's a fucking remake of something I loved as a kid.
Yeah, and at this point, I think the closest, if I had to compare Pokemon to one movie franchise, you know what I would pick? The Land Before Time.
Ugh, they had one good movie.
The first movie was amazing, and then they kept making that movie.
Yeah.
15 times.
15 times, 17 times, 21 times. Direct
like,
to home
it's
video.
Still just like a cute cartoon about dinosaurs, but like, I don't know. It's for kids. You're not supposed to like Land Before Time 16.
Or it's like Aladdin, right? They made this gorgeous high budget hand-drawn animation, but then you get the direct to video sequels with like,
hey man, Aladdin 3 is a really good movie. They got Robin Williams back for that one.
They did. It was not as well animated and the story is not as good, but it's a lot better than Return of Jafar.
I don't know. I think the story is better because there's more like interpersonal connections in that story than just like here's a plot device to have another song, which like a lot of the direct to movie sequels were had pathos. My guy,
the sheer pathos.
The Hand of Midas. Oh my god, that was great. I love that movie.
I too love that movie. Sarah and I just watched it recently.
What's up? As father and son.
When they're on, they're on.
Leaf loves that movie too. Shout out to Leaf.
Shout out to Leaf
for being right for once.
Listen, the last thing on my cons list that I've gotten to is another silly design thing that how did this game get through years of development and nobody said, hey, this is a really bad idea? And again, I brought it up with the group chat and Leaf just fucking bitched at me about it like I was being a priss. But there's a thing you get introduced to after a couple hours of the game with like online functionality. It is just a little symbol that constantly sits in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen and pops notifications up the side of your Switch. These tiles pop up, bloop, 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 and you can't turn it off. The best you can do is put it in airplane mode, but then it replaces the online notifications with like, you bought 12 potions, bloop, bloop. You caught a such and such, bloop. What the fuck is this design that I can't turn that off and I can't get rid of that symbol? I don't want any of that on my screen. And it's like, it's not just a little teeny thing. It's like a big distracting thing that pops up and continuously annoys you. So I'm playing, oh, bloop, I gotta go fucking exit out of these notifications. It doesn't just go away on its own. It's so infuriating.
You know what? I think the root of that problem is they had one guy in the office that had a 16:9 monitor and everyone else is using 4:3. So this one guy thought it was a good idea, like, oh, I'll utilize this space that isn't used by anything else in the world. I've only seen a 4:3 image, so it's weird that we have this really wide screen. So I'm going to fill it with something. And that's how it got past everybody else. They're using Dell monitors at 1280 by what, like 960 or whatever.
Something horrible. Have you seen the game? No, maybe I'm being unfair to it. And Drew and Leaf like the games, and that's fine. Let's talk about the DLC, Nick, and the cut content that they're bringing back, just like we all knew they would. Well, except for Leaf or Chris or whoever shit on me for bringing that up the other day in the group chat.
Well, yeah, we always knew that they would add back in the Pokemon that didn't make the cut the first time around, and it's kind of I don't know. I think it's kind of cool that they're actually doing the thing as opposed to doing Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, which is like, how did that become a product? Or Black 2, White 2. Like, even back then, they could have done DLC, but they just can't help but sell more copies of the same game over and over and over. They've been doing this for 20 years. 20 goddamn years they've been doing this. Yellow, at least, was like a different campaign, like had a different story, had a Pokemon following you around, had new things. Crystal there was no point for Crystal. It was just like, oh, we have 2-frame animations, and we actually use the color palette more strongly in this version. There's no point in any of these games existing, these middle ground games. Like, they should have been the game in the first place. Like, why is there 2 versions of this game to sell more copies? That's the only reason. But now they're actually doing a DLC, and they're actually adding more content. It seems like pretty substantial for what they're doing. It's only $30 compared to like them asking for another $60 product. I mean, it was bad enough that they had to pay $60 for this and Let's Go, and it was always a $40 game on the handheld versions. So like, fine. That's good that they're actually being slightly more economically conscious.
Listen, I don't have any beef with DLC, especially if it's actual story DLC and not just like. But even looking at like Pokemon Platinum had an entire new world and different storyline. Pokemon Crystal altered the storyline with the legendary dogs. Pokemon Emerald had a whole new thing going on. What was the other third version that I'm forgetting? Hey, at least Crystal let you play as a girl. That was the first time you got to play as a girl in a Pokemon game.
Groundbreaking. Earth-shattering. They changed the sprite, didn't change any of the dialogue.
I'm trying to what's another third iteration?
Platinum.
Well, yeah, Platinum was like a quite a bit different. I mean, that was
there's only been 4 middle ground games: the Yellow, Crystal, Emerald, and Platinum. Because then there was Black and White, then Black 2, White 2, then there was X and Y, which didn't get a third one.
Yeah,
and then Sun and Moon had Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon.
Those are bad. Like the sequels are. Yeah, I'm not about that. DLC, I'm all about. That's fine. The Pokemon Direct itself, I think, was really disappointing. It was fucking 25 minutes.
All the Pokemon Directs are really badly paced.
Yeah.
They're way slower than they need to be. I mean, half that Direct was just like, here's a slideshow of concept art.
Right.
That doesn't tell you anything. Right. It's just like, here's pictures. And then they spent another 10 minutes talking about the pictures, but not while the pictures were there, so you don't know what they're talking about.
Right. Horribly made. My frustration is, all I took from it was, I'm not getting the thing I want, which is Pokemon Let's Go 2.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get that announced in like May.
Sure.
Probably.
Hopefully it's not a next year.
This year. They could easily not do it this year and just like wait till next year.
Well, with the DLC, I imagine they probably won't do it. This will probably be a next year thing. You're right. Which would be
And if anything else, you might get like another spinoff done by another studio, which I don't think Mystery Dungeon is internal. Isn't that a collaboration with someone? Isn't that the people that do Etrian Odyssey? Isn't that like, fuck, I don't remember. I didn't look at the title screens.
I never played a Mystery Dungeon game, but they've always intrigued me.
I've played like 30 minutes of the Game Boy Advance one.
Not into it.
It just didn't click when I was playing it, but like
Sure.
it doesn't seem like a game you would like. But it could be one of those weird games that you get super addicted to for some reason, because it's like a roguelike dungeon crawler. You know, it's just random dungeons. You're mapping out the dungeon. You're playing as Pokemon, which is like cool, because you never get to play as the Pokemon. They're the coolest thing about the games. But this is just Pokemon like hanging out. It's literally a rescue team where you go into these caves and rescue Pokemon that are like trapped behind rocks and stuff. You fight bad Pokemon. Like, it's just cool, but like it's randomly generated, so that might be something you like or dislike. I don't know. Depends on how they execute it.
Sure. I'd check it out. I'm okay with that. I wasn't disappointed. I'm like, oh, cool. This is a huge subsect of Pokemon fans are getting what they want. And hopefully this game is good.
This could be the next Pokemon Conquest for you.
How about just make another Pokemon Conquest? Because fuck, that game was good.
Basic.
My main takeaway from the Direct was that I have to pay you to get the content I should have had in the first place. And if I want to get my Pokemon over that I caught in a game that I paid $60 for, I have to pay you to do that. Either A, for the DLC, or B, for some fucking arcane system that never works properly to transfer them over.
Well, if you're talking about transferring over, you don't need the DLC for that.
No, but you need to pay for
Pokemon.
Pokemon Home or Bank or whatever it is now.
Right, but everyone has to do that. It's not just you.
I understand that. If you want to transfer your Pokemon, you got to pay for it. That's frustrating in and of itself. Or if you want to trade them over, you need to buy the DLC in order to
Like, what do you mean?
So your two options to get the Pokemon from Let's Go in your game is to buy the DLC, right, or transfer them with Pokemon
No,
Home.
buying the DLC won't give you the ability to get Pokemon from Let's Go.
But it adds the Pokemon to the Pokedex. So
right, you can catch new versions of those Pokemon, but they won't be your Pokemon. They'll be new ones.
I understand that, but unless you buy the DLC, you can't get those new Pokemon.
If you just want those Pokemon, then if someone else buys the DLC, they can just trade it over to you. So you don't have to pay for anything if you know someone who has the Pokemon.
You just have to have someone else spend their money on the game. Understood. It's just fucking silly.
Or spend their money on Home. Like if someone else has Home,
yeah,
then they could transfer their Pokemon. I mean, that's just the way it is.
It's just silly. It's just silly to me. It's frustrating because this isn't more content. This isn't new content. It's just like, oh, that thing we've been doing for 25 years that you didn't do 20 years.
I don't know. I guess it's just weird to think of, because it is cut content in a way, because they're just using the same models and animations from the 3DS games, but
right.
But I guess like there's still, I mean, they are adding new things.
You're playing the mental
DLC.
gymnastics here. I'm seeing the wheels turn.
Well, no, I'm not doing mental. I'm trying to like understand what to be like. I'm not upset about this. I wasn't really upset about there being cut Pokemon in the first place because I don't really give a shit. I'm not like the kind of person who transfers Pokemon from the back games to the new games. Like I don't have an attachment to the Bulbasaur I bought or I caught in Red, or like I don't care. So for me, I thought like Black and White was really cool because you only caught new Pokemon. That was really tight. That was a really cool choice, and it was also cool that after you beat the game, you could go around and catch Pokemon from old games. Like that was a cool way to do it. So I guess for me, like the mental gymnastics is like, what is there to be mad about? Because I don't care that they cut Pokemon in this game. It's just funny because the reasoning they gave is bullshit. Like that's the only thing that's like funny to me, and like Pokemon as a company should be called out about because they lied.
Yeah.
But like I don't care at the same time. Like I'm not the person who's like raging because I can't send over Poplio or whatever from an old game. Because I already played that game. I don't need to play the new game with the old Pokemon. Like, what's the point? The point of the game is to catch and raise Pokemon and make a new team.
It's different for everybody. My thing is I want to play basically with my same 6 Pokemon in every game and explore a new world fighting new people.
Yeah, but your Pokemon don't start over from like level 1, so like what's the point if you have a team of level 60 Pokemon?
I'm not saying I even want to bring them over. I'm saying I want to be able to get my fucking Blastoise. I want to be able to get my fucking Alakazam, right? Like, it doesn't have to be the one from Let's Go. I'm not even going to transfer I have a living dex in Let's Go. I'm not transferring those Pokemon. But like the idea that like, if I want my fucking Evolution X, I have to pay to do that. I can't just do that. And it's something that should have been in the game that I already spent $60 on. And that they remove these things, give us those bullshit reasons, and then sell it back to us. I think, listen, if the story content's cool, whatever, that's fine. Like, that's good. Like, DLC is better than another version of the game if it's like substantial, actually an addition to the experience and not just.
I guess I just don't have that same feeling that you do. Like, if a Pokemon's not in the game, they're not in the game. If it's in the DLC, then it's in the DLC. That's fine. Like, I wasn't upset that Let's Go didn't have the ability to catch Pokemon that weren't in Red and Blue. Like, I wasn't mad that I couldn't catch Houndoom because I wanted Houndoom because I love Houndoom from Gold and Silver. Like that's a different game for me.
Yeah, fair.
Like, if he's in there, then like, fuck yeah, cool, I'll do it because that's a goddamn cool Pokemon. It's Dark Fire Dog, It's sick as hell. He's like a goddamn, he's a hellhound. That's fucking rad.
There shouldn't be an argument about like what I want versus what you want. You can just make everybody happy by just doing the thing you've always done. And like, I don't need you to convince me that like it's not that big of a deal. Like, it doesn't matter if it's not that big of a deal. They could have just done it and there wouldn't be a debate and no one would be unhappy. You can play the game how you want to play it, and I can play it the way I've always played it. And like, the point is moot. But we're sitting here arguing about like, well, it's not that big of a deal. It's dumb, but it's now because they made it this big deal, they gotta fucking sell it back.
Yeah,
it's silly.
It's just all weird because it's a media product that you don't need. So like, it gets hard to like argue about it when it's just like, just don't buy it. That's like what it kind of all boils down to.
All the more reason though to like demand the best. because I don't need this.
No, that's the least valid reason to demand the best. I want the best from like the things that I need to live. I want the best like politicians in power. I want the best food put in the grocery stores that I'm paying for. I don't need the best when it comes to media. That's just the bullshit that I use to while away the time between working hours, you know?
Nick, did you vote in the last election? I don't be talking about old politicians in power.
Care.
See? That's fucking, I don't want to be hearing about that. Oh my god.
Well, I also didn't vote for who's the president of Pokemon.
Well, if you had, we would probably would have got some better fucking Pokemon games.
We did a drain the swamp at the Pokemon company.
If that were Trump's platform, he might win me over. I'm just saying. No, I'm fucking kidding. That's fucking cancer right there. Fucking horrible. Well, Pokemon is Pokemon, whatever. We're going to wrap this pod up here pretty quick. It feels good to get sufficiently angry about something video game related. Thanks, Nick. I hadn't been angry in quite some time.
Only I can bring that out of you, I guess.
Feels good,
and
man.
Almost everything else in the world. Your mouse gives you as much anger as me talking about Pokemon does to
Fuck,
you.
dude. Yeah, it's very frustrating. We got to figure out all this technology. Yesterday in the group chat, it was pretty funny. Just everyone's giving each other shit. The last thing I had said the other day was like, it breaks my heart that Leaf, I said there's so many amazing games you'd never played, but you spent your time in 2019 playing Pokemon and Tetris and Death Stranding.
And Ring Fit, don't forget.
Yeah, right. Oh my God, Leaf, you fucking guy. So yesterday, Chris asked, is Trigun any good? And Leaf is like, oh, it's amazing. How dare you not have seen it? And Chris was just fucking with Leaf or whatever. And then they brought up Death Note. So I got in. I was feeling like a bitch yesterday. I hit my head the other night. I was feeling loopy and mad because I had hit my head yesterday. I was feeling like a bitch yesterday.
Dude, isn't that funny? Like you any sort of minor tweak to your head, just immediately you go into rage mode. Like your earphones, remember when earphones had wires and they would get caught on something? You open a door and it gets caught. You just immediately want to throw a goddamn chair.
Literally.
Like, you just get pissed.
So mad. And like, yeah, I hit my head really good on a fucking bookshelf the other day. And I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. If I go through this again with the concussion like I dealt with this summer, I'm gonna fucking lose it. But I was just feeling like a bitch yesterday. So I was like, they talk about Death Note and Cowboy Bebop and Trigun. So I was just like, Death Note's a bad anime. Cowboy Bebop was super fucking boring. And then my next text was, have you watched Pokemon? How about Dragon Ball Z? Gotta also check out Avatar, the best Japanese animation program. And Leaf's response was just, fuck you, EJ. And so I was like, how can I just like hit them with like a bunch of shit? I should Leaf dial the autism back. I was being a bitch. And then he's like, the writing in Avatar is better than any fucking blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, Smash Bros. Isn't a fighting game. The Last Jedi fucking sucked. Nintendo quit making Metro games because they are bad and they sell poorly. I was just trying to, no context, shot below the belt, and that triggered Chris. And then I hit Chris with his own line about trolling him, just copy and pasted his response to Leaf earlier in the text. I get dunked on so much. It felt good to just roast everybody and get everyone's autism flared up and then just leave the conversation. I got a lot of gratification out of that as the recipient of many a dunks. Okay. I needed it, Nick.
Yeah, I was bummed I wasn't present during the beginning part of that because I had somehow accidentally turned off my notifications for the group chat specifically. Like I was getting other text messages and like seeing the notifications for that, but not for the group chat.
Right.
I got that figured out, I think.
I always have mine muted because when that group chat gets going, it fucking gets going.
Well, I have my phone on silent. I just like to be able to see the little message icon in the top left of my screen,
Fair. We hopefully will not go 2 months without recording again. I know we always kind of, we say, hey, we're going to do this every week, but it's just not feasible. It's just not feasible to do it every week and edit a podcast, and things are crazy. So I would like to record more often. I would like to get a setup dialed in at your place where I come up fucking 3 times a month. We should just record at your house and like dial in a system for that so that it's
just tough because you make my dog go crazy and she's loud.
Forget. Yeah, she's pretty rough.
She's fine right now. I mean, you probably could hear if you like really listen to like little pitter patter footsteps up above me, but I'm sure you'll have that figured out with the noise gate when you're editing and stuff. But
hopefully this audio turned out good. I was gonna not edit it, but I need to edit it. There's a lot of shit I gotta edit out, but I got this new mic, this new boom arm set up, and we're just having a lot of technical difficulties. Okay, boom arm. Fucking good bit. This is a cool setup. Look at, I'm moving my mic around. You know, I can lean way the fuck back, and I'm chilling. I'm talking, and it's nice. But we just had a lot of issues, and I don't know. Hopefully, it turns out good.
You say we, but it's mostly just you're giving yourself troubles.
Yeah, I'm very frustrated. Now it's 10 o'clock at night, and I still have editing I have to do tonight, and I have to edit a podcast. So it's all happening. It's all a thing.
Dude, the only editing you need to do is just cut out that middle part where you're talking about your work email or whatever, and then just do like a auto silence skip. Just do it. The podcast listening app I use has it built in. Be completely fine.
I don't know, man. We'll see. I might see about automating some stuff, but there are burps and farts and clicks and clacks and ums, and
the people want that. All right, it's ASMR.
Yeah. All right, Concert Crusade. Fucking find us online. There ain't nothing for you to find. Follow Nick. Nick has been streaming like a motherfucker. All right, you can find him on Twitter at PreshTillDeath. You can find his Twitch channel. Same username. Am I right?
Yeah, same.
PreshTillDeath.
Unified across the board. Even changed my Discord handle to that just in case.
Damn, son. His streams are good. He plays lately a lot of Mario Kart. Sorry, not Mario Kart. Mario Maker. It's one of those fucking Mario games.
Excuse me.
Mario Maker. Yeah, you'll take user submissions and you'll play a lot of like the really hardcore top tier levels and try to figure them out. And it's fun and stressful. And so, yeah, check this fucker out on Twitch. Don't check me out on Twitch. I don't stream. You don't want to see me. I promise you.
Should. It'd be really funny.
Anyway, Concert Crusade. We'll see you guys hopefully